What that did was establish that we have to reframe how we understand the left. It's got to be remembered because it's been functionally forgotten, and what we think we know is wrong. We're trapped in narratives. Those narratives are under the operational control of people who are hostile, so that even when you feel like you're succeeding in information campaigns, you're actually losing. This is going to fall into a concept called political warfare, which has been functionally erased from our awareness. We want people to get off the narrative line, and we want to get into information operations where the operations are in many respects parallel to and equal to regular operations.
Subversion, that's happening. There is disinformation. What is that actually? Most people don't know. It's not just somebody creating some bogus thing on Twitter. Disinformation is the product of an intelligence bureaucracy. We have been targeted as the bad guy because we have intimate knowledge about these particular functions. So they need to discredit us. One of the ways they'll discredit us is, like Christian nationalism or domestic violent extremist. And so when we use language in a certain way, we end up putting ourselves in the frame for being able to be discredited that way. There's another element to this. For, many decades now, because of the loss of St. Thomas and Aristotle in common education, we've gone from causation to correlation, right? And so all they do is correlate something and then they use it in an attack.
It is Marxism. And the wordiness to do it is just a stage they put it on to get you to shoot yourself in the head. But the stage is real because they set it for that purpose. We're fighting the war in a blue pill environment constructed by people who keep us in there. And remember, even as Neo knew before he took the blue pill, everything was wrong, there was 100% reality that he could not ever win. Once he took the red pill, he could engage in the blue pill world, but he never engaged blue pill players. Even his closest allies in the blue pill world could be taken over by agents and go after him. Once they've eaten the fruit, they're not in play. Arguably, the main point of penetration for most Marxist activities may well be in religious organizations, and it's in hollowing them out that you have the inability to fall back on religious beliefs over time. The people who run Marxism would rather be rulers in hell than subject in heaven. That's so important to take in. They would rather be in command of a shit heap that they own than have the most elegant life not being in charge of it. What did Marx say in 1837? I wish to avenge myself against the one who rules above, thus heaven I have forfeited, I know it full well. My soul, once true to God, is chosen for hell. At this point in his life, being a self-confessed Satanist. Satanism is itself operates on a dialectical formula. It's the same formula that Marxism operates on, and it's the same formula other things operate on, like Hegel's metaphysical worldview. That if someone says that they're a witch, you just treat them like a witch, and then you start attaching the things that witches do, and you incorporate it into your analysis, because to fail to do so may be to miss things that come in through that. When you start incorporating this very close long-term association and import it into legitimate threat analysis? We're not going to incorporate it because we want to get into some weird crap. We're going to get into it because the people who we're operating against are informed by it. And if we understand how that might influence it, if you're doing real threat analysis, you have to account for it. And that's as far as we will go. Critical theory is a neo-Marxist principle that envisions the total dissolution of the existing order through a series of escalating dialectical negations over time. On the street signs, it's cancel culture. Critical theory is Marxism. It's not a version of Marxism. It's not a form of Marxism. Intersectionality isn't something Marxism participates in, that's a very Platonic statement, it is Marxism. Intersectionality is a Marxist term that covers for the dialectical attack process. It is a popular branding that provides an academic veneer, allows it to pass itself off as a science, and supports pseudoscience narratives that conceal hostile intent. Through the systematic negation of targeted cultural, religious, and personal values along critical theory lines of attack, intersectionality is a mechanism of intentional cultural genocide. With America as a repressively tolerant regime, wherever there is an other with a competing value, a negative value, that value will be scored as holding a liberating tolerance that will then be pitted against an American value in a dialectical process of negation. The dialectical process will use the other to generate as many liberating values as there are American values to be negated. To identify as an American, racism will negate this. Love America, xenophobia will negate this. Secure the border, the rights of the migrants will negate this. Believe the Constitution as the supreme law of the land, fascism will negate this. If American institutions of higher learning were built by immigrants of European stock, white privilege will negate this. If you are biologically male and call yourself a man, genderism will negate that. So you're seeing that this is how it works. What we're talking about is the liquefaction of reality. Every one of these intersectional attacks is an attack on your identity. So those things are what are under a direct attack, so that you are not allowed to identify yourself. It is a total attack on identity. And in theory, once every one of these is taken out, you are whatever we say you are, including if we make you have to say you're that yourself. You have a canceled culture. These are attacks on identity that cause you not to lose your way, but to erase it from your own knowledge. Us drifting is a deliberate attack. Nobody forgot anything. This stuff has been removed from your vocabulary. Now, there's another aspect to the opposite. It's just made up. It's just made up. Okay? So if they lose, all they lose is a made up narrative. But every time you lose something. So if they have to make up 50 different things to attack a trait, but they lose 10% each time, they know that if they have 10 different intersectional attacks on one target, ultimately it will be attrited down. What they are trying to do right now is replay the Weimar Republic when they thought they were going to take control in Germany. And what you see them doing on a slow roll is actually try to make sure the mistakes of the Weimar Republic aren't repeated. In using Nazis to kind of bootstrap themselves up by calling them the bad guys, the Nazis got the upper hand on them. I can't tell you how much time we lost going to Capitol Hill saying, if we could just this member of Congress understand this, they would change. And almost invariably, a couple years later, they knew what we were saying, and they were batting for the other team. You can't go to the second cause if the first cause can explain it. Why did they do that? Well, because they did it. If we could just explain it when they do this, bad things happen, they'll stop. But you haven't exhausted the fact that the reason they did it is because bad things happen. You just can't accept the fact that the person you elected to stop it is okay with that.
Difficult thing we have is that everything is so obscured. It's so difficult to figure out what the actual cause was. And then we get wrapped up in, why did they do that? Well, the simple answer is they want to negate everything. It's just semantic Marxism. If you control the language, you control the conversation, you'll control the outcome.